Alright, that looks stable. So, welcome back once again to D&D in Hindsight, where this week we will be doing Heroes of Horror. The second in the Heroes of line, which should explain exactly how popular that line was. In spite the roughly, 14 billion books they published for 3.5? But yeah.
One or two.
Yeah. Just a few.
A couple.
Yeah.
100.
Yeah. So, if fantasy dungeon crawling was the first setting for tabletop RPGs, you could argue that horror was the second, and horror elements have always kind of been present in D&D to the point where TSR was contemplating adding the Cthulhu mythos elements into the mix, but was afraid of getting sued by Chaosium, the publishers of the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, which we will probably talk about another time, but for now, Heroes of Horror. As soon as I click on the book.
Oh, the book.
Yep. The introductory chapter, as expected, starts with describing the base concept and answering the begged question in the best possible way. Why should you play a horror game? Well, why not? Followed by pointing out there are a lot of horror elements already present in what you're doing, so it's really just a slight vibe shift that doesn't even have to be the whole campaign and can just be its very own, its own very special episode of Murder Hobotopia.
Can I just note that art right there just has standard adventurers horrified by the existence of jack-o'-lanterns?
Well, wouldn't you be? Walk into a dungeon. And
No,
there's a bunch of jack-o'-lanterns.
I interpret that as the people in the picture being horrified by the player.
Entirely
Where's his
possible.
pants? Oh god! The guy in the back covering his eyes.
Little do you know, these are animated jack-o'-lanterns. And those are level 1 adventurers who can die to, like, I don't know, a house cat. So...
Some real jerko-lanterns.
Alright. So from here, it goes into advice for the base elements, themes, tone, and... a fun table of nonsense!
A fun table of nonsense.
Yep, some creepy effects. Let's see.
Oh shit. A PC discovers a piece of the last monster or person he killed mixed in his rations. That's one of the things on that chart.
Yep. A character
Character
hears
opens his canteen and finds it brimming with blood.
Character hears soft giggling of a little girl or distant music. Nobody else can hear it.
Oh god, I love the last one. One
Yes,
word.
the last one.
Fog.
Fog.
So as you can see right off the bat, they're actually having fun with this book.
Yeah.
Which I think is important for a good horror book.
Yes, it is. For horror in general, it is actually kind of important.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, moving on from this table. From here, the author goes into talking about the villains for this type of campaign, and... yes, another fun table! Yep. Some classic villainous traits.
To wear PC shoes just for a minute.
Hey, if your nose is trickling blood constantly, you eagerly lick it up. Really, you should see a doctor. You're not a villain. You're someone with a serious medical issue.
That's just as crippling cocaine.
Fascinated by watching others eat.
Oh, one leg has been replaced by a cylindrical metal cage containing a homunculus.
Ah, my homunculeg.
Right, so anyways, you can also see that this chapter ends with actually a couple of sample encounters. And they're just encounters,
Yeah.
not a full thing. But yeah, moving on to chapter 2, where it goes into adventure crafting. For something longer, like a session or so.
Those ghosts outside got me pregnant.
I was about to say, why did-
Yeah, I just kept staring at this one too. I'm like, what the fuck?
Now I got a ghost baby inside me.
One of those is the Holy Ghost, and it got Mary pregnant.
Does anyone know how to throw a ghost falcon punch?
Oh God.
I think a regular Falcon Punch still works.
Right, so anyways, this is where they start to go over in more detail the tone differences between dungeon crawl and horror and the psychological elements that go into it. Like, make the player suffer, set a good mood, betrayal, distrust, claustrophobia, etc., etc. Make sure the plot falls out from under them. And more about designing villains. Including all the base classes as villains.
Okay.
Yeah. Just a neat little thing. This actually continues a little bit on the... It's literally the base classes from the base book, and here's just Ionic characters in like one blurb. It's like, okay, I guess you can do that.
They're all the same.
Yeah. Certainly all the same. That's that Soul Knife definitely the same as a Scion.
Exactly.
Let's see. And also some nice basic tools for screwing with players, including split the party, don't show them everything, threaten everything they care about, etc. Oh yeah, and finally, a sample adventure, for hate's sake. Which, that's about all I can show you without spoiling an adventure, so... Alright, on to Chapter 3, which is the broader picture, which is just outright... Whereas the first chapter was, like, doing a single horror encounter, and the second one was doing, like, a session. This is an outright for a horror ideas for a horror campaign. So the chapter alone highlights the contrast between this book and Heroes of Battle, which was dedicated to war being the whole campaign as the base concept. Heroes of Horror takes the base approach. Here's the style and advice of how to use it at each scale, separated by chapter, which honestly just makes this book a lot more approachable and bite-sized. If you can't get my tone already, I just like this book a lot better than Heroes of Battle, and actually do like this book. Unlike other like DM advice books, if I was actually thinking of doing something horror-wise, I might actually give this one like a once-over for a few ideas here and there. It actually comes out pretty well. Let's see. Also includes a sample campaign with its own sample Wayne Reynolds art over there, though this time it's in the middle of the chapter as the next section is on Dreams and Nightmares, which makes sense in a horror book. Not too much on it, and pretty much what you expect it to go over, but, yeah. Kind of belongs in here. Alright, and moving on to a rules chapter. Now we start getting the crunchy bits, starting with the overbuilt rules nonsense that I usually complain about. Except no, actually. This is entirely advisory on a DM for how to use elements of dread, shock, etc. in 3.5 system with simple save or ecstasis effects that you're actually familiar with, and some examples of when to call for such things. Even the broader fear section only offers an optional replacement for the frightened rule that makes it like a -4 instead of running away in fear, and offers some phobias for the DM to use as they wish. So, the first thing this the first immediate thought that popped in my head here was, who are you and what did you do to the 2005 D&D designers?
Are these done by, in fact, the same designers? Or
Yes!
Are they...
I've seen these credits before.
Clearly, this isn't actually them, but mirror universe versions of them.
Well, okay, it could also just be said in full seriousness. It could be that, like, when it came to fantasy, they just knew the generic stuff, or, like, you know, your generic Tolkien-esque fantasy stuff. But when it came to horror, they knew a lot more about this, so when they were writing about it, it's like, oh, these guys know what they're writing about when it comes to horror, and can do a more in-depth thing.
Yeah, I think it's also, that might be it. It might be easier to fill page count with just actual ideas and concepts and etc. and not have to actually, oh shit, we need to fill more pages and more pages and more pages. We need crunchy rules. But yeah, I was kind of legitimately surprised at, like, I expected the fear section to be like, okay, we're going to overly complicate this and like figure out. Here's a giant table of how frightened they should be over various pieces of rundown architecture or something. I don't know, but it's like, no, this is pretty simple, straightforward, and actually fairly solid.
I'm surprised there isn't a massive table of fear effects.
I mean, there's the phobias, but the phobias are actually pretty straightforward as well.
I mean, yeah, with phobias makes sense. I mean, more like,
yeah.
Oh, your character's so afraid that they do this. Whoa.
No. The harder rolls are for the rest of it, oh, by the way, now is the moment in which we will pause for a bit and let my co-hosts who have the maturity of a 12-year-olds get this out of their system, as we need to start talking about the rest of this chapter, or most of the rest of this chapter. Taint! Because, of course, this had to show up again.
You know, I'm very disappointed that you think we would laugh at Taint.
Uh-huh.
Taint is a very real concern in not just horror, but also fantasy universes.
We have declared ourselves as shepherds of this old D&D lore, and it is our solemn duty to...
I couldn't even get through a sentence, could you?
I'm not gonna lie.
No! I was t-balling for my own joke there.
If I wasn't mid-bite, I was gonna giggle at duty.
Alright. Okay, I'm good. Got out of this.
Okay. So, the Taint of Evil, which was actually in Oriental Adventures first before we saw it, the revised version in Unearthed Arcana that we talked about back then. In this book, Taint is split into Corruption and Depravity, both of which, by the way, are better names for this concept than Taint.
Oh, great.
Yeah. With Corruption being the physical, being basically physical things, and Depravity being mental, either of which can be acquired from contact with basically radioactive evil, either entering places of it or being punched by it. With a save to avoid taking Corruption or Depravity, basically. Corruption also requires a Fortitude save if you gain more than your Con modifier to reduce the D4 rounds of nausea that you would suffer to sickened instead, which, lose your standard action versus -2 penalty on rolls. Quite a dramatic one there, and is nowhere near as bad as Depravity, which does the same with Wisdom and Will, except the effects are stunned if you fail and dazed if you pass, because fuck you. And really, no, both of those are skip your turn.
Spooky.
Yeah.
I think you're underestimating the spookiness.
Yep. So, the thresholds and penalties for Corruption and Depravity are different as well, with characters able to take a much larger amount, and the consequences of not dealing with it within 24 hours being a single effect rolled on a silly table at each threshold until you hit dead/insane from too much exposure. Yeah. Like, 13 to 16 is what you could imagine average players' Con or Wisdom will probably be, especially after they start getting magic items, which means that these are fairly high numbers, and it doesn't accumulate that quickly. But anyways, some examples. So, yeah, basically, once you hit a certain amount, you have 24 hours to get rid of it. So once you hit any amount of taint, you have 24 hours to get rid of the taint. So, if you suffer 3 points of corruption, you have 24 hours to get rid of it. If you don't, then you roll in the mild corruption table. So you get effects like Deadeye or Ear Scabs, etc. It's just roll a d10 and you get one of these. And further on, there's like, here's moderate corruption, here's severe corruption. The penalties aren't insignificant. Some of them reduce stats, other ones are less painful, but they're all something. On the other hand, the other rules to deal with this. So for every level of corruption and depravity you get, as compensation, you do get a bonus feat. And any feat, not just ones that care about the system, though feats that require taint will stop working if you drop down taint levels, which is how feats work without you having to tell us that book, by the way. If you no longer meet the requirements for a feat, you can't use a feat.
Yeah.
You can also carry around things that take taint exposure for you, but they have diminishing returns. The more you have of them, the less points they can actually absorb. Like 4 being basically a good one there. Uh, Also, moderate and higher tape makes you detect as evil, even if you're not, and will make a paladin lose their abilities. Good God might get mad at their clerics, but they have to reach severe tape for that to happen. Tank can also be cleansed via magic, doing goody things to reduce depravity, or bathing in the woods to
I
reduce
just
corruption.
use soap and water.
Yeah. Yeah, you would imagine that would work. Yeah. Let's see. Beyond that, we have some set dressing ideas, including haunting rules for haunting rules for when you want a disembodied mummy hellbent on making some silverware spooky or something. It's the same haunting rules as before, basically. Let's see. Also, the usual overlay simulation is terrain rules and maps, but nothing incredibly horrible. Just they write way too many rules for every little piece of terrain. Like seriously, great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. Let's see. Also in here, optional rules for trying to replace alignment, including trying to excise it from the system and replace it with behavior, which is almost a good idea, but is too much of a headache with how the mechanical parts of 3.5 were built that I recommend against the idea. But if you want to relax the more strict nonsense like alignment restrictions on classes, then you won't really run into much in the way of issues other than having to do some massaging with Paladin. Though you do have the alternate paladins and Arcana for the other corner alignments, which works well enough.
Have a paladin have their oath be the vengeance of a ghost. Like they're possessed and get their paladin abilities from the spooky ghost, but they have to like.
But they have to
the
do
vengeance of the ghost as a trade-off. I actually like that idea.
Look,
Yeah, it's not
Ghost,
actually
we
a bad one.
can't keep getting people pregnant.
Ghost pregnancies. Any case, other things you might want to mess with here. Divination, which is not optional rules, but is the author talking about divination as it applies to mystery, or into a mystery of any, or mystery campaign of any sort, which plays a big part in a horror campaign, and is honestly solid advice for a DM wondering how to treat such magics in their campaign. Even if I could sum up the whole thing up to the player becomes a plot device. Make them feel like they're helping, but don't let them solve the campaign with one spell. Obviously. Also, Death and Resurrection, which thoughts and opinions on this vary and have evolved in the 20-plus years since 3.5 and are probably best left to your group's preferences, honestly. The attitude of the time was this is a pseudo board game / video game and losing should have penalties or something as a way of adding consequences. That's not how role-playing games have really panned out in recent history, and adding the insult of a level loss to the injury of character death is generally seen as kind of mean. Resurrection, on the other hand, is a weird middle ground that removes narrative consequence and can reduce the stakes a bit too much on the role-playing end if you can just, I don't know, Phoenix down everyone who dies in a cutscene, and is doubly problematic in a horror campaign as it takes the edge off of the mood even more so than usual. On the other hand, a fun table. It's not the author's intent and all, but this might be a good replacement for the level loss from the Raise Dead-like spells. Just get a random effect. Subject becomes reckless and feeling that death is no longer to be feared. Horrible nightmares disturb them to sleep. They get extra 2 to 4 hours before they're fully rested. This is especially funny for a race that doesn't actually sleep. But yeah, various little things like that.
The subject is now owned by some exoplanar entity and must do its bidding as though summoned.
Yep.
Nature Paladin.
Yep. Oh yes, also this section and down here on violence and taint. Basically, you can make murder hoboing cause taint.
Sure, if you're a DM who hates their players.
Yep.
I hate the players.
I mean, most DMs do.
You know
Yeah.
you did.
It's true.
Alright, Chapter 5. The character building stuff, including 2 new base classes, starting with Archivist here. So, yep, this is the Wizard Clerk with other things going on, but let's start with the spellcasting. So they are divine casters that start with a prayer book with a handful of starter spells. They add 2 spells that they learned from the clerk list to their prayer book, exactly like the spell book for wizard, basically. Memorizing a spell in each individual slot, like all preparation casters. They can also add to their prayer book with spell scrolls, except they can learn any divine spell this way, not just clerk spells. Which basically means they can pick up druid spells. They can also technically pick up ranger spells that don't appear on either of the other 2 lists. How useful that is, probably not, but it's still a thing they can do. Yeah, there's no this by no means gives them as good a list as the wizard, but it is more options, which is just plain more gooder. The big notice here is they are a dual stat caster, so they use int for their DCs and caster requirement, but wisdom for their bonus spells. As far as the non-spells are concerned, their main feature that isn't casting is Dark Knowledge, a limited use move action ability that starts at 3 times per day and eventually grows to 9 times per day. It lets them make it makes them make a knowledge-appropriate check to mess with magical beasts, aberrations, undead, outsiders, and elementals by default, but there are feats that expand that list to include giants, fae, dragons, and constructs, which leaves only animals, humanoids, monstrous humanoids, oozes, and vermin as uncovered targets. It covers a broad amount of things, and you can, if the campaign happens to expand into one of these 2, you could just pick them up as feats, basically. So the DC of the knowledge check is always 15 to get any effect from any of the abilities, no matter the target, with greater effects for beating that number like a redheaded stepchild. You gain more Dark Knowledge effects as you advance at Archivist level, and they include, let's see, a +1 to allies attack rolls on creatures of target race, increasing to 2 at 10 and 3 at 20. This is basically how all of them are going to work. Going 10, or for going over by 10, or 3 for going over by 20. That's basically how all of them are going to work. It's basically incremental for if you hit a 25 or a 35. So +1 to allies versus +1 to ally saves versus target race, plus a d6 to, again increasing by to 2 and 3, plus a d6 to allies weapon damage against target race, increasing to 2d6 and 3d6. Dazzle that one guy, increasing to daze when you go 10 over, and stun if they're not immune to stun at 20. If they are, you can still daze them. If they're immune to both, you dazzle them. Congratulations. I don't think anything's immune to dazzle. It's also the worst debuff in the game, but, you know, it's there. And finally, a +1 AC to allies versus that guy in particular, increasing to +2 and +3. I don't know why you saved that one for last, but okay. Let's see. Other class abilities include Scribe Scroll, +2 to Decipher Script, and eventually to 4 Knowledge Skills of Choice, +2 to Saves versus Enchantment, and 1 bonus feat per 10 levels that have to be Skill Focus, a Knowledge, Spell Focus, or a Meta Magic or Item Creation. So, a good variety for a caster, honestly. So this class is good, obviously, and blatantly a tier 1 class. It's a full casting clerk. But also it's also kind of interesting and just different enough not to feel like another clerk or wizard, really. Dark Knowledge is probably the most interesting restrictive thing here, as it is useless in a narrow campaign that fights only like humanoids, but good out of the box if most of what you're fighting is on their main list, or you might need to take 1 or 2 feats to make it work, but it's there at least. This is also how you balance a skill-based ability, right, as spreading the checks out to several different but related skills makes it so reading one's skill to the moon doesn't produce disproportionate results. It's a lot harder to power game 4 or 5 knowledge skills than it is to just power game 1. Let's see. And the other base class, Dread Necromancer. An arcane necromancy-focused class built on the chassis of Warmage, of all things. They are charisma-based spontaneous casters who know their entire spell list and gain extra necromancy spells of choice from clerk and wizard lists as they level. Other things they get as well are Charnel Touch and at-will once per round touch attack that does like a DA plus half class level to the living and heals undead. It's used for delivering other abilities later. They straight up get Rebuke Undead. let's see. DR Bludgeoning and Magic, that starts at 2 and grows to 8 at level 15. It's actually a nice DR in general and grows faster than most other DRs. A 5-foot burst negative energy that does a d4 per class level with a will save for half. That's eventually usable 4 times per day. Let's see, a +2, which is eventually a +4 versus sleep, stunning, paralysis, poison, disease, and an at-will free action 5-foot fear aura that is will save or shaken to enemies but doesn't work against someone who passes it for 24 hours. The ability to, as a swift action, to add Contagion to Charnel Touch. This is where it starts being interesting. Contagion is an instant disease that from a chosen list that requires a save versus this ability or take some amount of stat damage. It's basically going to add stat damage to it is the short of it. Eventually, you can do that 3 times per day. They get a familiar that's more powerful in the sense that it's some type of minor evil thing. Let's see. +4 strength and dex and +2 HP per hit die to undead they create. The ability to control more undead. +4 to saves versus negative energy. Light fortification. Half your class level and negative levels, and you can give out your touch attack as a swift. Or you give your touch attack as a swift action. That you can give to your touch attack as a swift action. That eventually becomes your class level in negative levels that you can give out, but no more than 2 per attack. So it's there. Let's see. Craft wondrous items at 19 for the purpose of making a thing for your capstone, which turns you into a motherfucking lich.
Fucking lich.
Okay then.
Yeah. So this is far into the opposite side of their design, where they weren't necessarily intending for you to take like 5 levels in a class and leave. They just actually designed this class for 20 levels for once.
To stay in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And while you can't be good, you're not actually stuck as evil with this class either, and their spell list is not the one-trick pony that the War Mage one is. Necromancy is not the most diverse school either, but your mileage with the undead minions will vary from campaign to campaign. This class is just solid in general, and thematic as well, making it so you aren't just here for the capstone.
It is rare that you get a solid yet still thematic class.
Yeah.
You gotta appreciate it.
This is where we're starting to get into the later parts of what I'd almost call like 3.5 Part 2, where they start to just actually get reasonably good at designing their game.
Yeah, they have a better grasp on what works and what doesn't. They have, like, classes that they're looking at in the wild and seeing examples pan out. This is around the age where forums start being a regular thing, and they can listen to at least the word on the street regarding their product.
Yeah.
At least from the group that is comfortable with computers.
Yeah, the forums are pretty active at this point in time. They actually have feedback. They see people actually playing their game. They start to actually get an idea of what groups are actually doing, what's useful tools for them, what's not, etc. Let's see. But enough of that, on to prestige classes, starting with this Corrupt Avenger. It's a corruption-based martial class, all about hating on those guys at any cost. Let's see. They get arcane spellcasting, like a wizard, book included, and can get a very minor amount of it, obviously. Got 4 levels casting. They can cast while wearing light armor, they use charisma for DCs, but gain bonus spells using their corruption score +10. More on that later. And have a sworn foe, which is either a single creature type or an organization that they can detect like a paladin, and they get growing skill bonuses against. You also gain the ability to trade any corruption they have, they have for the internal corruption. It's a different thing on that table. That one is basically a -2 to your con, which is painful, but it doesn't show outwardly. And is less painful. So some of it's a severe corruption. It's less painful than some of the other severe corruptions. Basically, they can replace something to make it not as obvious that they're tainted with the ick. Let's see. They also get Tainted Strike, and eventually 3 times per day, adding that ability that adds half their class level to damage versus things not specifically immune to taint, which by default includes undead and things with the evil subtype. They also add Charisma to all their saving throws, and they have Frightful Fury, an aura you gain when facing your sworn foe that forces every enemy within 30 feet of you to pass a will save or be shaken, and the Pseudo Capstone, Unnerving Fear, which forces enemies within 30 feet of you to make will saves to avoid taking an additional -4 on d20 rolls. That nothing is immune to by Raw. This works on mindless constructs. You're scaring the rocks. Also, Fallen Paladin gains some extra bits here. In order to qualify for the class, you would actually fall as a Paladin by default because you have to have moderate corruption. Yeah. So, if your game has to have the taint system for this class to be an option, obviously, and while you have a sworn enemy, most of the class abilities don't revolve around them, including the best one, which is that Unnerving Fury, and also Grim Resolve's not bad. That Charisma saves, obviously. The spell list for this class is not great, containing some utility and a bunch of save or debuff effects, which are so underleveled as to be useless. But they are arcane spells, meaning that you can use them to fuel arcane strike feat from Complete Arcane, which is add the spell's level to attack and do an extra d4 times spell level to damage for the entire round. It's just a solid feat. The bonus spells here are based off your corruption stat, which is potentially completely fucking silly. Assuming average amounts of con, the minimum corruption needed to get into this class is somewhere between 8 and 10, giving you 1 bonus spell on each level, which is meh. But your cap before dying of too much ick is probably going to be somewhere between 55 or 69, which is between 7 to 9 bonus spells of each level. With a more comfortable / not on death's door number being probably giving you somewhere closer to like 3 or so extra spells each level, giving you tons of fuel for an arcane strike and occasionally some useful utility spell, I guess. Overall, kind of interesting, though it is very specific to we're using the taint rules.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see. Now on to something more broad. Death Delver, a open class themed around the study of death. They gain Prepared Divine Spellcasting using Wisdom with their own special list of okayish utility, condition removing spells, and necromancy spells. The Death Watch spell at will as a swift action, which lets them know whether things within a 30-foot cone are dead, near dead, slightly less near dead, undead, or not alive or dead, like a construct or something. Let's see. Rebuke Undead regardless of alignment, which means that if you have Turn from another class, you can have both to fuel some silly divine feat of one sort or another. The ability to spontaneously cast Cure or Inflict as per the Cleric, which I will note that neither of those spells are normally on their list. Immunity to Fear, the ability to cast Death Ward, which gives them immunity to death spells and effects, as well as energy drain, negative damage. Eventually they get to do that 3 times per day, with its duration is 1 hour per class level as well. Let's see, the Die Hard feat, which allows you to continue doing things at negative HP. A once per day Fear Aura activated as a standard action that lasts for a round per class level and forces all enemies within 30 feet to make a will save or be panicked for a round per level, which panic will just force them to sit there and do nothing. After they pass, they're shaken for a round, but overall not actually a bad crowd control ability. Let's see, they also automatically pass saves versus death from coup de grace and massive damage, which is
Massive
cute.
Damage.
Yay! So if your DM is sadistic enough to have massive damage, also the automatically passing saves versus coup de grace is great and all. You're probably still dead, but
I was gonna say.
For it to happen, you basically have to be helpless and someone's hitting you anyway, so...
And it does crit damage with that weapon, from what I remember, so it's,
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. Other than that, at-will full round action that grants all allies within 60 feet a typeless +4 bonuses to will saves for 1 minute per level. Which means you can just constantly keep doing this as you walk through a dungeon. And your capstone, which has 9 lives, it lets you cheat death 9 times, leaving you stable at -9 HP if you would otherwise die from damage. So this class is by no means the worst thing I've seen, and is, if nothing else, a 1-level dip for Rebuke Undead to fuel some nonsense in a silly build. And sticking with this class will give you some utility, especially in an undead-focused campaign, but outside of that, it exists, I guess. There are better options, including just being a base class like a cleric, mostly. Now to something I actually quite like. Dreadwitch. A 5-level fear-based caster class that gives up 1 level of casting to, let's see, increase the DC of fear spells by 1 and get +2 to intimidation checks per class level. A feat that adds their charisma to will saves versus fear. The ability to absorb fear, which gives a bonus to caster level or extra low-level spell slot based on the power of the fear effect, and is independent on whether they pass or fail a save against it. So basically, they're subject to a fear effect. Whether they pass or fail, they get a decent bonus to their casting. The ability to eventually, twice per day, add to the fear descriptor to any spell they cast that has some visual component, like a fireball, that makes things targeted by the spell need to make a will save or be shaken for D4 rounds. Let's see. The ability to delay any fear effect you cause by up to charisma minutes, by up to charisma in minutes, or your charisma modifier in minutes. And also twice per day delay fear effects on yourself, but still gaining the benefits of your absorb fear ability. Let's see. They also got another +1 to difficulty fear effects and the ability to frighten things normally immune to fear with your spells like paladins, undead, some constructs, but not golems, because golems are immune to anything that requires spell resistance, basically, and all fear effects have spell resistance on them. Or all fear spells have spell resistance on them. And the dual capstones of Horrific Aura, which scares weak things within 10 feet of you and lets you do a touch attack charisma bonus times per day. That forces a will save or panic for D4 rounds, causing a shaken on a pass. And Reflective Fear, which causes whatever fear effect you save against to be reflected back on its source, and if that source fails, gives everyone else who failed against that fear effect a second save. So, well, Absorb Fear is questionable. I like this class a lot, and it gets a lot of... it gets the one thing it needs, the ability to overcome immunity to fear at about the level where you're going to need it, because past a certain point, almost everything's going to be, like, immune to mind-affecting effects, which is... fear is a mind-affecting effect, so it makes the idea of doing a fear-based caster near freaking impossible at higher levels without that. But yeah, it lets you actually do a caster-focused build around that concept and feel effective in any campaign. The Absorb Fear part, on the other hand, is more niche, but can work in campaigns that heavily involve stuff like dragons and some undead. Also, as an aside, Cause Fear and Scare are level 1 and 2 spells, so you can actually start this class at level 5 and be done by 9, and go into a different prestige class for all it matters. Let's see, next. Fiend Blooded. Fiend-themed spontaneous arcane caster class that gets the Fiendish template on your familiar, if you have one. Fiendish Heritage, which gives you +1 to AC and eventually +1 to Charisma, Intelligence, Dex, and Con. Fiendish Sorcery, which gives an additional spell known on even levels in this class. That must be a fire spell or be an enchantment, illusion, or necromancy spell. +1 to save versus poison. Let's see. 5 fire, cold, acid, and electricity resistance. Smiting spell, which lets you eventually twice per day increase the damage a spell does by class level plus your charisma modifier, and the capstone, which is Fiendish Exaltation, which gives you +1 Dex, Con, Int, and +2 Strength, as well as immunity to fear and DR10 magic, coming nowhere close to completing the pseudo fiend template it was hinting at, and costing you an actual level of casting. So this is strictly better than sticking in Sorcerer, and there's minor amounts of need here, but both the prerequisite feats are not great, making this less appealing option. Yeah, Eschew Materials and Blood Calls to Blood, which I pulled over here, which is very meh. Incredibly meh, as a matter of fact. Yeah, +2 saves versus Fiends and Half Fiends, which... that will come up. Yeah, that will come up, but not often enough for it to matter. Well, can come up if you're actually fighting fiends in your campaign, but yeah. Okay, next one. Purifier of the Hollow Doctrine. A taint-stopping class that gives you half its that gives up half its spellcasting to taint on tainted creatures, which is anything with one or more corruption or depravity. It has an Aura of Holiness that let tainted things know you're here to kick their ass, detect taint, turn undead, lay on hands, smite taint eventually 3 times per day that also lets you use other smites you have to smite taint. A 10-foot aura that gives others +2 and eventually +4 to resist taint. Your prerequisite feat here, as an aside, Pure Soul, makes you completely immune to taint. Let's see. Turn taint. You get to turn taint things as if they're undead. Turn the taint out of things. Use turn attempts basically to purge corruption and depravity. Let's see, 3 times per day, auto max a spell against a tainted thing, and Shield of Purity, a standard action to spend a turn attempt for a 10-foot aura that gives all within +6, or all within a +6 versus spells and magics of tainted things for your charisma modifier in rounds. This is build your own paladin but taint. It's perfectly fine in context and obviously unplayable otherwise.
Yeah.
And finally, and we'll get into it, Tainted Sorcerer. An arcane casting prestige class that revolves around depravity, which makes it your average wizard. So it lets you use blood instead of non-costly material components, dealing a point of damage to you, but increasing the caster level by 1. Makes it so you have to pass a will save of DC 10 plus your depravity to advance as a different class other than this one. Makes it so your bonus spells are based off 10 plus your depravity, and your DCs add 1/2 your corruption score instead of your stat, and attaching a will save of DC 10 plus spell level whenever you cast a spell to avoid gaining another point of depravity. Also lets you substitute internal corruption for any other corruption like the previous one, and gives you 5 secrets, which are pretty much your choice from this list, honestly, if you're doing this class. Of, let's see, take con damage to do meta magic, automatically stabilize, death knell once per day, once per day add your depravity to wisdom skill or will save, once per day add your corruption to a concentration check or will save, take 3 damage when casting a spell to do a d6 extra to each target with that has blood. DR1 piercing and slashing, a tainted feat, +1 first level, plus an extra first level spell per day, an extra second level spell per day. They also get bardic knowledge using depravity, once per day contact with other plane, the ability to thoroughly assess taint, and friendship with creatures of taint that grant a once per day limited wish at the cost of more taint, and a quest to spread taint. Okay, so all that being said, tainted magic is fucking stupid for a PC, especially if they have any way of controlling their taint input. The rest of their features are fine to good, but not worth trying to salvage this class from a bin of just plain no. Like the DCs of any player character who can reasonably use half their corruption score to instead of their stat is going to be fucking stupid at a certain point. Like, once they start having a corruption stat in the 40s. And I also went over with the Corrupted Avenger exactly how stupid the bonus spells get, and this is an actual casting class and not one that has, like, a poor spell list and 4 levels of casting. This is straight up an arcane caster. Alright, on to feats. Feats! So first, starting off with this Bane Magic one, which is actually a less aberration-specific version of the one from Lords of Madness, where, you pick a creature type, and your spells deal 2d6 extra damage to that creature type. This is not a meta magic feat, this is just all spells that you cast, period. Haunting Melody over here, which is basically another Bard performance style thing. Inspires Fear, 30 feet, blah, blah, blah. Shake it for a number of rounds equal to your perform skill, which is a decent duration. And Notably, if you add 2 Shakens together, you get a Frightened, and if you add another Shaken to that, you get a Panicked. Because fear stacks like that, weirdly. Pure Soul, which I talked about earlier, which is straight up, you take this, you can't gain Taint.
Immune to taint feat.
Yep, immune to Taint feat. If your DM is letting you take this feat and went out of their way to add the Taint of Evil rules, I'm kind of wondering. Let's see. Spirit Sense, Wisdom 12, must have near-death experience. This one was... Oh, yes, you can see dead people. And you can speak with them. Doesn't mean they're friendly or anything, but you can see dead people and you can talk to them. Corrupt Arcana, which is our first tainted feat. Basically, you have to have taint of some sort, in this case, like Mild Depravity.
Mild Depravity.
Yep. This one, if you have access to a corrupt spell in written form, you can prepare it in some way. Yes. This lets spontaneous casters prepare corrupt spells. We'll get to corrupt spells in a minute, but suffice to say, you can't normally cast them as a spontaneous caster. Debilitating spell, let's see. Feat adds Evil Descriptor to a spell for the more deals physical damage. Yes. Twice per day, add Evil Descriptor and increase, and lets it do, I think it was con damage or wisdom damage, depending on whether your corruption or depravity is higher. Debilitating Strike, basically the same idea, but for hitting things, again, like twice per day limits on those. Or 4 times if you have a severe taint of one sort or another. Tainted Fury. Number of hit points equal to... yeah. Straight up gain a number of hit points equal to your corruption score.
Corruption scores get fairly high.
Yeah, you could... yeah, you could have something in like the 30s or 40s probably pretty comfortably if you care about having severe taint. So, yeah, that's a lot of hit points.
So half your score to damage on your Tainted Smite.
Yep. Yeah, you get 1 Tainted Smite during the Fury as well, which gives half your... Yeah. No, it's a fairly large number. However, when it ends, you
I do like that both when it ends, you lose the hit points, subtracting them from your total, so you have the similar issue to Barbarians where they spontaneously explode. But then you also have to make a save, and if you fail that, you take D6 con damage, making it even more likely you will explode.
Especially since the save is DC 10 plus your corruption score, which may well be fairly high. And improved Ornamency here, which annoys me because it's like, okay, you can see these 3 prerequisite feat. So Ornamency has a few spells specific to itself. This is the only way to get them. After getting 2 other feats. One of which specifically notes itself as being... I didn't put it here because it takes up a crap ton of text and isn't really that interesting, but specifically notes that you have to ask DM's permission to get this one because the feat itself interacts way too much with Dreamworld shenanigans. Let's see. But yeah, on to spells. So... Dread Magic, this is just flavoring. Variant, evil spells and taint, etc. Spells may cause you taint. So corrupt spells. Corrupt spells are on no one's spell list by default. Anyone who's a memorization caster can memorize a corrupt spell. If you have one on a spell scroll or in a spell book. You can't write the spell scroll to your spell book, but you can use it to prepare a spell as if it was a spell book. Just because. That is the only way to actually access corrupt magic. This is a lot of words, by the way, for 3 spells. There's only 3 corrupt spells in this book. I only even put one of the examples here, Chain of Sorrow, because I feel like I should have. The other thing about corrupt spells is they all have a corruption cost, so like this one will do 2d4 charisma damage when you cast it. Let's see. Yeah. And is fairly mean. The initial target takes 2d10 charisma drain, will save for half. They make the save, we're done. If they don't, the next person that touches them takes 2d10 charisma save. Or charisma drain, continuing on and on until somebody passes a fucking save.
It's not the next person to touch them, it's specifically a friend, loved one, or ally.
Yes. Let's see, and here's a Neuromancy spell, for example, move into Dreamscape. This one I can understand actually being locked behind the feats. I think most of them were more or less like that as well. It was just really annoying that you had to go that deep just to get some spells. Sorry, not some spells that you know, by the way. You actually still have to take them as a spell known or write them into your spell book. So, yeah, even worse on that. So, Harm Greater and Harm Mass, which are notably on the Dread Necromancer list, and not as good as their name suggests. So, Greater Harm is like Harm, except it has a range, but instead of doing 10 per level, it does a d12 per level, up to a maximum of 20 d12. So it does less damage, but it actually has a range.
If I say on average, it's a higher level spell slot and does less damage.
Yeah. But the range is close instead of touch, and you don't actually technically have to hit. It's just... Yeah, you don't technically have to hit, they just have the save. And Harm Mass, which uses Greater Harm, except it's an area burst centered on you. Note this will hit allies as well. Also, the Summon Undeads are in here. We've seen them before, so I didn't really bother duplicating them, but they do exactly what they say on the tin. They are basically Summon Monster, except Undead. And there's only 5 levels of them. And this thing, Pact of Return, I put here. Let's see. Oh, yes, this is, you can bargain for a way of returning from... So basically, if you call how you die, this spell will bring you straight back to life. I found this just to be amusing as shit. It does have to be something a little bit off, or a little bit more specific than, I expect to die from losing my hit points. It is completely up to the DM as to how this works exactly, but... Still quite an amusing called shot spell, basically.
I mean, it works pretty well if you know you're about to do something stupid, like, I'm gonna go fight that dragon. Pact Return if I die being horribly murdered by a dragon. Hey, dragon! Oh no, my bones!
Who had choking on a chicken bone to death? I did. Yes, called it.
Just wake up each day. Hey, so, God, am I gonna die today? And if so, what would that look like?
Yep. Let's see. Also, here are some minor artifacts, or magic items and minor artifacts. And by that, I mean, here's this Rod of Sanctity and artifacts. Including
What's the cast time on the spell?
Standard action. So yes, you can't do this right before a really obvious death happens.
Yeah, it's like, you come back at, like, some amount of health.
It's whatever resurrection is, which I think is fairly reasonable. Might even be full health. It's actually a good question. Resurrection.
Yeah, full health, vigor, hit points, no loss for prepared spells. You do lose 1 level.
But you don't from this one, because it specifically it doesn't. Yeah. With no level loss.
Okay, so you could keep it prepared. And then when you get to low health, call out the very situation you are in.
So if you do a contingency...
Oh my god, you could you at that level?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, contingency like a 6th level spell. Just the idea of like, oh no, I'm about to be murdered by this dude. Hold on, to cast the spell. I'm about to be murdered by this dude. Oh no, I've been murdered. Full health now.
Is contingency on the clerk list? No, it's Sorcerer Wizard only.
No, it's sorcerer
Okay.
only.
Okay, so you'd have to do some shenanigans to get around that. So if you're using Weapons of Legacy, contingency was one of the higher level options.
Oh my god.
But ignoring that, as should probably be ignored.
For an easier solution, just don't die.
I just like the idea of casting when I get low on health in a fight. What do you need to know? Kill me, give me all my hit points back.
Also more surprised that Aesorak actually gets an artifact. Not that surprised, but still. Oh, well.
I mean, he is apparently the most deceptive and pernicious lich.
That's accurate. He built the Tomb of Horrors. Alright, on to monsters. This is the proper monster chapter, but it actually starts with describing just various classic horror monsters, basically. You know, the vampire, the wolfman, Frankenstein's monster, mummy, ghosts. Stuff they kind of already have stats for. Frankenstein's monster's a little out there, but not quite. Also various types that work pretty well, like aberrations, some animals and vermin. Dragon can work in a horror campaign. Or dragons work in a horror campaign in the sense that dragons work in a lot of things. And on the actual monsters proper. Starting with this smiley fucker.
Oh, the ball game.
Yeah.
The Bimp.
Let's see. An elemental common taint.
Taint elemental.
Do you know how many of those I needed to gather? It was a lot.
Cadaver golem, or as I like to call it, you know we have flesh golems, right?
But this is different for reasons.
I guess. I mean, sure. I guess you could just sell more heads. You could just sell more heads onto a flesh golem, honestly.
Look, we need to fill space in the book.
Okay, so the actual difference here is an intelligent flesh golem. It actually has an intelligence score.
Ah.
Yeah. More along the lines of saying like Frankenstein's monster, which was... Okay, sorry. Along the lines of how people see Frankenstein's monster, not Frankenstein's monster from the actual book. The movie Frankenstein's monster, I should say.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Hammer horror Frankenstein monster.
Yeah. This motherfucker.
New clowns were going to show up somewhere.
Yeah. Grey Jester. Notably, this is...
more?
Yep. Notably, this is a fae. Because of fucking course it is.
Never make a deal with a clown. Clowns are harmed by cold iron.
And this Tainted Minion and Tainted Raver, and why the fuck are both of you using freaking spike chains and dancing with them like...
Makes sense. Swing a chain.
Oh, we gotta sell all these spike chains we made to sell
Literally,
on.
spike chain is the most tainted weapon.
It's one of the few viable freaking exotic weapons, but...
To be fair, I'm pretty sure that the undead tainted thing uses using a spike chain, because I'm fairly certain it's implied to be the tainted raver. Considering it is also a like 5th level human fighter. I think they literally made the tainted raver and then did that as the tainted minion.
Yeah, it looks like it actually.
So then both having spike chains at least makes sense in that regard.
Yeah. Different armor though.
Yeah,
No, they're just different armor. Different spike chain too, technically, but...
Yeah, but it looks like that's what they're going for, if I had to guess.
Yeah, that'd be my guess too.
Considering they also have
same
the same feat selection.
Yeah.
Like literally the exact same feat selection. The same skills, except with the stat differences that Tainted Minion has.
Yeah. So in honor is Tainted Raver is a template, as is Tainted Minion.
Tainted Raver is a lifestyle choice.
Level adjustment. Tainted Ravers cannot be player characters. Okay, sure, fine, I guess.
Like, also, if you read the like flavor text for it, the warrior before you swings this, or The Way Before You swings a spike chain through the air, intricate patterns. It's like basically
Yeah.
masking the same flavor text as well.
Right. So, anyways, that's pretty much this book. And
The scariest thing, the back of the page, the book.
Yep, the back of the book. And no, I kind of like it actually.
Yeah.
It's actually decent advice for running a horror campaign. Does not overbloat itself with too many stupid rules. The Taint of Evil stuff is fine. I wouldn't hate playing a campaign with it. It doesn't look too unapproachable, honestly. And there's some solid amount of actual crunchy bits of class options in the back. The feats and spells are a bit sparse, but that's not really too much of a knock against it, honestly.
No, and I mean, to make the feats whatnot more, to add more of them, you'd need to dig more into the system, which means you're just going to add more feats that are useless if you're not using Taint.
Yeah.
So
there are non-Taint feats
fine.
in there too, so yeah.
There are, but if they're going to add more stuff, they'd probably lean into the Taint idea more, I would think.
Probably. They already put a couple subclasses, 3 subclasses in there that care about Taint, but
yeah,
or 3 base or prestige classes in there that care about Taint.
They care about it.
Yeah. But yeah, Hunter, Krampus, any thoughts?
Horror is always a fertile field for any kind of medium you're in, be it film, movies, gaming, whatnot. So it makes sense that there was going to be a horror supplement, and it looks like time and maybe possibly an increased interest from the authors resulted in a better book than we'd gotten from previous setups. Good book, doesn't wear out its welcome.
Yeah.
Would recommend leafing through for ideas.
Has interesting stuff. Definitely the better of the 2 Heroes books. Pretty much everything I think has already been said.
Yeah. Yep.
Definitely better than the Player's Handbook.
Yeah.
Definitely better than Player's Handbook, but that's kind of a low bar and a running joke to some extent.
Well, I brought it up.
Yeah. All right. And we will be back shortly with another random ass thing I did.
Oh.